right, so now I've traced my mandala from the window, and I'm just going to go around and erase all those extra lines that we don't need. Remember, I made my altered edge. So I decided to give it that kind of fun little sort of floral edge, so I don't need all those extra circle lines. And I did keep my L and my D labels because they will help me. So this is pretty much where I am now, and I'm ready to start thinking about my colors, which is really fun. So what I suggest for you to do is you want to make sure that you've got a light and dark, but here's my trick. I chose maybe like 4 colors. So I think for this painting, I'm just kind of going through, probably on top because I used them the most recently. I used, and my purple, it's somewhere, there it is. I used these colors, and what I actually did was they are the darks, and then to make my lights, I just added a little bit of white on my palette to them. So what I may suggest doing first is, this is not what I did, and I think it would have helped me to do it this way. Maybe go ahead and do your darks first, and then move on and do your lights. I always say I would work light to dark, but if you go ahead and do these first on your mandala, on your dark places, then you can decide, how light do I want to make my tints? Because you don't want them to be like, super, super light, like my example that I showed you before, and then super, super dark, right? You want them to be pretty close to each other. So even this, I still wish that my green had not been as dark as it was. I really like the browns, how different they are. I really like the purples. I don't love those blues. There are some things I would have changed. So my suggestion is don't do anything with black. Don't add any black to make a shade. Use your basic colors as your shade, your darker ones, and then add a little bit of white to make the lighter ones. So I would pick at least 3 colors to give it some variety, to make it interesting. I've got our color wheel here, and if you're visual arts, we have not gotten to talk about color yet. I'm so sorry, but we will definitely in your next art class for sure. But you probably remember color schemes from elementary school or middle school art. So the color schemes that you probably remember, blue, red, and yellow, that's our primary. You can make all the other colors with your primary colors, and those are just kind of always there forever. So a primary color scheme would actually be really beautiful because you could get some pinks, you could get some light blue, you get some really pale yellow. It could be really lovely. You could do a secondary color scheme, violet, green, and yellow. Orange, that I was pointing at. Those could be a color scheme if you wanted to. I really like analogous color schemes, which means they're next to each other on the color wheel. Anything that's next to each other in the rainbow is going to be beautiful. You always know that they're going to be friends and they're going to work together well. So that's why I really like using like blues and purples or blues and greens. I love cool colors. This side of the color wheel is my jam. You may be different and want to use warms, and that's fine too. This is just really cool, and you can even look up, on Pinterest, online, whatever color schemes that you like. Sometimes I'll do a split color scheme, which means that I'll start with a color and then I'll look across and see what's over there. So for example, like a red, a blue-green, and yellow-green could be really fun to use, and you might not even think of it. Brown's not on the color wheel, but brown looks beautiful with everything. So that's why I really wanted to incorporate a little bit of brown in here. If you have gold, that could be really fun too. I just would try to stick away from mixing the colors together, like colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel, because they make brown when you mix them together. Not next to one another, they look great next to one another, but across from each other if they're mixed. You might not want to do that. I think for mine, I love this purple so much. I'm going to definitely use this purple. The green that I used was really thin and it didn't go on as well, and it kind of gave me trouble, so I'm not going to use it. I am going to use brown because I love purple and brown together. I want like a minty green to start with, or like a really sap, or like an earthy green. So I'll kind of be looking, there we go. Sap green, that's like a really naturey green. And I really don't want a super like red warm in here, but I'm gonna kind of think on, I don't know. This is the fun part where you can kind of just play and think about what you want to do. So even if you have colored pencils, this will totally work. But you want to think about, you know, what's going to be my dark, what's going to be my light. This could be kind of fun. I always go for the same colors over and over, I feel like. I want sort of like a little magical forest kind of thing going on. So I might do like some bright blue. I kind of always change my mind and go off of what I was planning to do, but whatever. So this is this blue that I just love, that's cerulean. So it's gonna look pretty similar to this one, probably, honestly. But that's okay. They're the ones that bring me joy. So they're the ones I'm gonna use. So I might just use these 4. And then I might throw a little pop of something else in there. Maybe like red. We'll see. See, I start thinking I've got like a color scheme going, and then I just kind of go crazy. All right, so it's a little peek into my brain. All right, so I'm going to grab my little cheat sheet piece. Here he is. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of plan out my colors on this one. So I'm going to start with my dark side. So now that I'm looking at my colors kind of together, I really don't think I want red. I think it's way too different. See, this always happens. I need like, I might just do almost exactly what I just did, y'all, and use that really awesome little yellow ochre color because it was great. Ooh, maybe like a burnt sienna. I might try that. It's not quite as bright red. All right, so I chose 5 colors. You can totally do less. So I'm going to be planning what the background color of the mandala is, what all these little pieces are going to be. And this is just going to be kind of like my little tester, okay? So looking at this one, this just kind of inspires me. So my background was pretty much like greens, I guess. That would be like a green mandala. I love the violet, and I think I want it for most of it. I really don't know about that yet. I don't think he'll be there yet. So I'm going to use violet for my background, for my base, and then I'm going to do kind of the fillers with these colors. So this is my dark side. So I've got my little palette here, and when I'm doing my tester, I don't use a lot yet because I might not end up wanting to use that color. I might end up liking it. So I don't want to put out a lot yet. Also, these tubes are tiny, and they're really all I've got as far as acrylics at my house. All right, so I'm going to just kind of test it out. I don't worry about making this super beautiful right this second because it's just my little practice. But it is good kind of practice for teaching you, like, okay, when I go around these little shapes, you know, I want to be careful. I don't put much paint on my brush at all when I do this. I treat it almost like it's an ice skate skating over a skating rink. I just kind of spread it with my brush. I don't really like plop it down on there very much. Ooh, I love that violet. I find it so interesting how much darker it is than the actual tube. I'm just gonna make sure I'm on the screen. Okay, well, I didn't mean to get purple there, but it's there now. All right, this is part of the background. The nice thing about acrylic is you can really kind of cover up and go over things if they're not too dark. And I chose pretty, you know, not pale colors for my mandala. Okay. All right, so I think that's all of the violet that I see right now that I want to put. I'll probably use it in some other places later. So I'm going to go ahead and just let my brush sit in the water while I think about what I want to do next. All right, so these bigger shapes are making me think of leaves, so I might do green for them. And I don't really go in an order with how I put my colors down. Sometimes I go light to dark. I do go big to small. So I go background and then I go big to small. So bigger spaces to smaller shapes. But all my small shapes might not be the same color, if that makes sense. So it's not really a rhyme or reason to it quite as much. All right, so this is the sap green. I don't know what it's gonna look like. I haven't really used it much yet. And I want to think about what's gonna really pop when I add lights too. Green is just always so thin. I don't know what its deal is. It's like that with our tempera paint at school. It's like that with all of my acrylic. I have a feeling this is gonna have some Mardi Gras vibes again. Purple and green always make me think of that. Okay, so I've got some green there. Might do some green down here because that shape is kind of repetitive and repeats. I'm going out of my lines a little bit, no big. I would not want to work this close wet to wet on my mandala, but I'll get to that in a minute. I make my middle diamond here green. Makes me think of Barney. I make this green too. I'm just trying to use green while I've got it on my brush. Like, where can I repeat it and use it? I might use it here. All right, but I've got 2 more colors to do, so I'm not gonna keep going with green. All right, so I'm gonna leave that one in the water to clean off. I'm gonna choose the next color, so I'm gonna think about blue. Where do I want my blue? Weird thing about the blue is it's lighter than it looks on here. They never match their outside. Okay, I like it here. I still haven't done a warm colored one, like pinks and reds and oranges. I should probably do one. I'm gonna do blue on here. It's okay to just like pause and decide, especially with colored pencils, y'all. It's really hard to cover up something unless it's really light. If you put something where you don't want it and you've spent so much time doing your mandala, so really plan it out. And it's almost like a little paint by number you've created. All right, so there's blue. I'm gonna, I don't know, should that be brown? I'm gonna put blue on these little dots because they're smaller and I want them to stand out. I'm gonna put it in here in the little middle one. I'm gonna save brown for these 2. I'm gonna save brown for that one. I think I'm gonna put blue here. So I'm just kind of planning out and playing and, you know, thinking about where I want things. And I love this blue, so I'm gonna use what I've got left and just kind of put it there. All right, so my brown's going to go where there is still white, and that's what I'm gonna do for that one. Once I've done this, I'm going to show you how I move around on my mandala so that I don't get everything way too wet. I use a paper towel to wipe my brush off before I put it in the paint, but it's under something right now and I can't get to it. Ooh. I don't always do a tester for the light side, or vice versa. Sometimes I do a light, I don't do a dark. And you can. I think if we were to do this in class, we would definitely do both sides to see what it looks like. It just kind of saves me time to just mix the colors as I go. All right, so those are my colors so far, and they're not super, you know, nothing's standing out wowing me right this second. But imagine if there were lights next to them. I think that could be really beautiful. So I'm kind of thinking through and thinking, do I want to change anything?